Dan Madison ran the official fan clubs for both Star Trek and Star Wars, and he worked closely with the people involved with both franchises. We'll talk with Dan about his interesting career, his thoughts about the recent sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, and about UFOs. Maureen and I will also discuss the possibility of upcoming manned-moon missions, a recent UFO sighting in Denver, and other space and UFO news right now on Spacing Out. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury. Thanks for joining us.
Maureen and I can't wait for you guys to hear our interview with Dan Madison. It's going to be fun.
But before that, let's talk about what's in the news this week.
Although much of the general public has incorrectly assumed that the end of the shuttle program was the end of NASA. The organization is alive and well, though, with many exciting current and future missions, and some experts believe one of those future missions is a manned moon mission.
In 2010, President Obama redirected NASA's focus from a moon mission to working towards sending astronauts to an asteroid by 2025. But John Logsdon, a space policy expert and a professor emeritus at George Washington University, told Space.com that he suspects an announcement will be made soon, revealing a moon mission in the near future.
What makes Logsdon suspect a moon mission is just around the corner? Well, back in September at the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, the AIAA Space Conference, NASA Deputy Administrator Lori Garver revealed that a comprehensive report had been delivered to Congress outlining where NASA plans to go with their Space Launch System, or SLS, heavy lift rocket. She stated that the SLS will go beyond low Earth orbit to explore the expansive space around Earth-Moon systems, near-Earth asteroids, the Moon, and ultimately Mars. And for those who weren't paying attention during her presentation, she restated, let me say that again, we're going back to the Moon, attempting a first-ever mission to send humans to an asteroid, and actively developing a plan to take Americans to Mars.
Logsdon believes that NASA's recent plans to park a space station beyond the far side of the Moon is a hint that a manned moon mission could come before the organization lands humans on an asteroid. And Space.com says, we may know soon enough. NASA higher-ups have dropped hints recently that a big announcement may indeed be in the offing before too much longer.
On Monday, October 29th, Hurricane Sandy slammed the east coast of the United States, causing an incredible amount of damage. Millions of people in New York were left without electricity, including Brooklyn Nets point guard Deron Williams.
Williams was recently interviewed by GQ magazine's Peter Schrager. During the interview, Williams revealed that he saw something strange on the night of October 29th when the power went out in Manhattan. He explained, the night all the power went out, I was standing out on my balcony, looking outside the window. Out of nowhere, I saw this big green flash across the sky. It wasn't lightning. It looked like a UFO.
Nice. What was it really? Is how Schrager reacted. Williams responded, a UFO. I'm telling you, man. According to NetsDaily.com, others also observed the strange light in the sky that night, but NetsDaily.com also makes the assumption that what people saw was an exploding transformer on 14th Street. Media networks relish the moments when they serve as the source for breaking news. And what network wouldn't jump at the opportunity to broadcast the first detection of intelligent extraterrestrial life? Well, apparently the BBC.
On Wednesday, November 7th, British physicist and professor Brian Cox appeared on the BBC Six Music Breakfast Show. Professor Cox explained to the show's host, Sean Keaveney, that he and his colleagues on the BBC's astronomy program, Stargazing Live, wanted to point the Jodrell Bank telescope at Therapelton Holmes B to listen for signs of life. The team discovered this planet back in 2011 and has reportedly never had a radio telescope pointed in its direction. But before the team got a chance to listen for alien life on this newly discovered planet, Cox claims that the BBC nixed the idea.
He explained, the BBC actually said, you can't do that. We need to go through the regulations and health and safety and everything in case we discover a signal from an alien civilization, according to excerpts by The Telegraph. Cox continued, explaining his response. I said, you mean we would discover the first hint that there is intelligent life in the universe beyond Earth, live on air, and you're worried about health and safety of it?
So it would seem that either BBC has some advanced knowledge of foul-mouthed extraterrestrials on Therapelton Holmes B, or they're involved in some sort of cover-up conspiracy. Okay, probably not, but either way, the network appears to be unreasonably worried about the unlikely possibility of indecency coming from an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization. And in all honesty, this was kind of said in a comedic manner, so I wouldn't weigh into it too much.
Researchers discovered what appears to be another super-Earth planet, a potentially Earth-like planet that is much larger than Earth, but smaller than a gas giant like Jupiter. Although other super-Earth planets have been discovered recently, they're pretty rare, so the discovery of another super-Earth planet is pretty exciting.
This new planet, HD 40307G, is the sixth planet in a six-planet system approximately 44 light-years from Earth. As Space.com explains, this planet orbits at a distance of 55.8 million miles from its star, HD 40307. And this distance puts it into HD 40307's habitable zone, the region in a planetary system where liquid water can exist on a planet's surface, meaning this planet could potentially support life as we know it.
An international team of astronomers made the discovery using the High Accuracy Radio Velocity Planet Searcher, or HARPS, at the European Southern Observatory. But as astronomer Phil Plait, formerly of Discover Magazine and now at Slate Magazine, points out, HD 40307G is still considered a planet candidate. It has not yet been confirmed. An anonymous man gave KDVR Fox 31 in Denver, Colorado, a video showing what he claims are UFOs over the city. He claims these objects appear a couple times a week, but the objects fly too fast to see with the naked eye. The video has to be slowed down to make out the UFOs.
A photojournalist from the station went to the same location as this anonymous man and set up his own camera. He also managed to capture a UFO video. The station showed the video to aviation expert Steve Cowell, who opined that this is not an airplane, that this is not a helicopter, those are not birds, I can't identify it.
KDVR Fox 31 reportedly checked with both the FAA and NORAD, but neither organization detected any air activity during the time the video was recorded. And although the objects in these videos appear to be insects flying close to the camera, Cowell told the station that the objects are not insects.
Okay, Jason, I know that this guy is saying these objects in this Denver video are not insects, but I don't think that possibility personally should be ruled out because of the behavior of the objects.
And I'm not entirely sure on what he's basing this, to rule that out. He's an aviation expert. He's not a bug expert.
Yeah.
I'll say that. It's great that the station was thorough enough to check with NORAD, to check with FAA, and to talk to an aviation expert. That's awesome. But to solely rely on an aviation expert to say the objects in this video aren't bugs, that seems a little presumptuous to me.
I've seen a couple other theories that maybe this is possibly debris flying up in the wind, and this is something I believe that the station even had put forward in their story.
Yep, that's right. The expert they talked to, the aviation expert, suggested that that's a possibility, that debris is being blown up, and it was captured on both of these videos. That seems kind of weird.
Well, all right, let's ask your opinion here. Do you think this is an extraterrestrial spacecraft landing and rising in Denver?
If it is, I guess extraterrestrials have awesome spaceships and they like to do loop-de-loops and have a little fun. I don't know what they're doing there at the same time of day and, around the same hour and repeatedly in that same location, just kind of like zipping around and not really flying with a purpose. It seems a lot like the behavior of bugs, in my opinion, but, there's very little to go on. So.
Well, speaking about some craft that we may be really able to identify is this NBA video here that he saw the flash.
Right, and, really we're just given vague details, just one statement saying, saw a green flash. And what did that flash look like? It looked like a UFO. Well, to me, a flash doesn't really look like a UFO, so you could assume that, he saw some sort of craft, but that's assumption. We have very little witness testimony to go on here. It's just a one-sentence statement about a flash. So if there was an object, we could say that possibly that could be a fireball, a meteorite, that was largely composed of something like nickel that would burn green in the sky.
Correct.
So a green fireball, and we've seen those more commonly now in the past couple years.
But you know what this reminds me of, and really why I think that they're probably spot on with this transformer blowing, is remember last year in May of 2011 with the Fort Worth, Dallas flashes, where people reported all sorts of UFOs because all these bright colors were flashing all over the sky, and it was caught on camera, but it was a series of transformers, again, blowing up in another storm. So it's interesting. I don't think it's a UFO, probably, but if we got more details from him, that would be helpful.
There was a similar explosion that happened in Phoenix either earlier this year or last year, and it was captured on video. on live TV when the anchor woman was delivering a traffic report, and the live video they had behind her on the screen showed a large flash, and they later determined that that was a transformer exploding.
Remember, because at first the power company said it was that wasn't theirs, and then APS finally came forward and said, yeah, or SRP, or which
there was some discrepancies there, as there was with the Fort Worth explosions. You know, all of these have some interesting backstories to them. But because there was this transformer explosion in New York at what seems to be approximately the same time that it was reported by the NBA player, it's more than likely the case, but we don't know.
Get him on the phone.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him, for sure.
Anybody got contact with him?
Yeah, right. So here's another thing that we should talk about, are these manned missions to the moon. You know, there's been a lot of speculation and talk among NASA. They haven't officially announced this plan of theirs to put sort of a floating station beyond the far side of the moon, but that's rumored to be announced pretty soon, and now we're hearing speculation that that could possibly indicate manned missions happening before the asteroid manned missions. What do you think about that?
Well, honestly, I think that we should send another manned mission to the moon. I'd love to get out to new places as well, but I think more importantly is our closest neighbor here that we haven't explored very deeply.
Right.
And if they're going to be putting this dark side of the moon space station up anyways, might as well just kind of figure out how to put those in the same mission.
Right. We talked about this before, and you know that I share that opinion with you. I want to get back to the moon, and I think that's the next logical step. You know, if we do want to do these asteroid missions and eventually Mars, the moon is right there, and that should be the next step. And with everything we talk about, with how easy or easier and more of a reality it's becoming to actually build structures on the moon, I think, you know, we're getting closer and closer to that reality. And with private space companies, with added pressure from China and other countries, also with moon missions on the plate, I think it's going to push NASA to move their booty a little faster.
Well, honestly, I think NASA should do the manned mission to the moon. We've got planetary resources going to come in and start, you know, going to the asteroids. Well, I don't know if that's not a manned mission, though, the mining yet.
Well, no, not yet. But, you know, that's a good point with the private space companies, too. While NASA isn't dead and they've got lots and lots of awesome missions that they're currently doing and lined up to do, we've got all these private space companies that we talk about all the time on this show. They're also working on manned missions to the moon and manned missions to Mars. Let's
just split it up. Everyone work together so we can cover as much territory as possible. We'll see. Well, but we'll
without being territorial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's I think what needs to happen, and that's what'll make things happen a lot faster.
Hopefully.
So work together, folks. It's now time for our interview with Dan Madison.
Jason and I met Dan recently at the Paradigm Symposium in Minneapolis, and Dan's had an exciting career, one that would certainly make any sci-fi fan jealous. He ran the official fan clubs for both Star Trek and Star Wars, among others, and he published their respective magazines. He's now working on a cool new sci-fi project that, let's just say, this cool Star Wars shirt is from.
That's right. And while he ran the fan clubs, Dan was basically the provider of official information for Star Trek and Star Wars fandoms. He's a cool guy, and he's got some really interesting stories. So here's our interview with Dan Madison. Dan, it's fantastic to see you again. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, guys. I'm really pleased to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we were so excited to meet you at the Paradigm Symposium, and your story is really fascinating and inspirational, and you had Jason and I glued to the edge of our seats the whole time. But for our audience who was not there, could you give us a brief overview of how you became so involved in the mega franchises of Star Trek and Star Wars?
Sure. Well, I started out as a fan like everybody else. And I started a fan club back when I was a teenager. Got a job in a print shop and learned how to make it very professional looking. And as a result, it got in the hands of Paramount Pictures, who said, "Hey, you know, you're not doing this with a license. You need to have a license." And I said, "Well, you know, that would be great. How do I get one of those?" So they flew me out to the studio, and we sat down and talked, and I got a license and started the official Star Trek fan club. And it's more than just a fan club. We published the official Star Trek magazine. We had the official Star Trek catalog. We produced all these different kinds of exclusive Star Trek product. And in about 1987, George Lucas saw what I was doing and decided that he and his company wanted to talk to me about doing the Lucasfilm Star Wars fan club, magazine, merchandising, all of that aspect that goes with the whole fan club. So flew out to Skywalker Ranch, got the deal struck with them, and started doing both at the same time. So for quite a long time, our offices in Denver, Colorado were kind of Star Trek, Star Wars ground zero for the fans. I mean, we were publishing all the news, all the information, and this was before the internet.
Right.
So really, the way to get your information was through one of our publications, and we grew quite large. We were reaching, I'd say probably, I think it was every 2 months through our magazine and other sources, we were reaching about 2 million people.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah. And as you said, before the internet. So, I mean, you were really driving the information source before there was this mass called the internet where people could easily get information. That's pretty cool.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. You know, it was kind of an exciting time because you couldn't just pop on the internet and find out the latest news, you know, minutes after it happened. You know, if something got released to one of the major news outlets or something, you know, you could watch it on TV. And then the internet started coming around about halfway through my tenure running the companies, and we started launching online stores for Star Trek and Star Wars and running information and such online. But for the majority of the time, starting back in about 1980, the printed page was the way we got our information out.
Wow. And you had access to a lot of the key people here involved in Star Trek and Star Wars, and you got your information directly from the horse's mouth, I guess. And at Star Trek, you developed a really good relationship with Gene Roddenberry, and he shared his thought on UFOs with you, didn't he?
He did, actually. We had a private conversation. We had several private conversations where I'd fly out sometimes to do interviews with Gene for the Fan Club magazine. And Gene was a great supporter of everything that we did. You know, I'd fly out to the studio and sit and chat with him in his office for a little bit. And one time we started talking about, I don't know, all kinds of things, a variety of things. And I've always been interested in the subject of UFOs all my life. And I really wanted to find out what Gene's feelings were about it. So he said he believed that we were being visited by UFOs. And he said he felt that we were being visited by UFOs. And he said he believed that we'd been visited in the past by UFOs as well. So based on my conversation with him, it sounded like Gene believed in UFOs.
Wow. And I've got to ask you this, because I know you spent some time with Bill Shatner, and Shatner is somebody who's said many times that he firmly believes in extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a chance to talk with Bill Shatner about that?
I never got the chance to talk to Bill Shatner directly about UFOs, but he's publicly in several articles and such has come out and talked about how he believes very firmly in UFOs and that we've been visited by them. So yeah, he's been very public with his beliefs.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still airing. I think it was back in 2010. He had a show in Canada called William Shatner's Weird or What? And he was exploring some mysteries that included UFOs.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's no secret that he has come out and said he believes in UFOs.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So I got to bring up this mega news that happened recently here where it was just announced that Lucasfilm was sold to Disney and that they are producing Star Wars 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
Got to hear your opinion on this.
I've been inundated with calls and emails and such yesterday about it. And it's a pretty exciting time, actually, for Star Wars fans. You know, it's a mixed feelings. I mean, I'm excited about it. I think it's actually a good thing for the Star Wars franchise. And Disney has already been working with Lucasfilm, so this is not, you know, something strange and new. I mean, they've been doing Star Wars weekends at Disney World for years and years and years,
right.
and Star Tours, the ride. So Lucasfilm and Disney have had a very close relationship. So it makes sense that were something to happen along this lines, that Disney would be the right one to go to. What is a little bit, when I say mixed feelings, is that the fact that, that George no longer owns Lucasfilm and owns the rights to Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all of these projects that we all love. So, that's a little bit bittersweet, but he still is going to be around as an executive consultant. And apparently he's already had some conversations with Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher from some of the pieces I've been reading. And so I'm quite excited about it. I actually think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to bring in some new blood, some new vision to the Star Wars universe, while George still gets to maintain, the essence of what Star Wars is. He's already written treatments for 7, 8, and 9. So I think it's a great thing. And so far, most of the fans I've spoken to think it's a great thing as well.
Cool.
I know that a few people were worried that it was just going to be a few more Jar Jar Binks character incidents, which happened. I should mention that he was your co-star in, was it episode 1?
Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That's right. Yep. I shared the screen with Jar Jar Binks.
I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say, talk about, mixed feelings. I don't know how this would make you feel, but it was a few days ago that Jar Jar Binks, the person who plays him, voiced his opinion about this deal, and that made me think of you, and I wanted to ask your opinion, but that's what I'm saying, mixed feelings. I don't know how that would make you feel, being that Jar Jar Binks reminds me of you. So.
Well, there's worse things to be reminded of me. So actually, the guy that played Jar Jar Binks was a great guy. I really enjoyed his company while I was on the set there. But, like I said, I think the Star Wars fans are happy about this new deal that Disney is now owning Star Wars. And I don't think Disney is going to do it wrong. I think that Disney has the idea. They know what the Star Wars fans want. They're listening to them. And I believe that they'll give Star Wars fans the kind of movies that they've been yearning for years. That's my opinion. Now, I know there are others who are worried that it's going to get Disneyized and that it's going to become juvenile and, but I don't think that's the case. I think that Disney is going to be respectful of the Star Wars universe and respectful of the Star Wars fans. And I think they've got a lot invested. They paid George $4.5 billion for this thing. So they got a vested interest to make something that they know the fans are going to want, because they got to earn that money back and more. So.
Right. Well, it's good to hear that from you, and I share your opinion. And, it's even more interesting to hear from you, because I know you are still tapped into the sort of Star Wars fan base. So, you can get a sense of that pulse of what the fans are thinking, too, about this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, there's some fans who are worried about it, as they describe it, cautiously pessimistic. But majority of fans that I've spoken to, and my own personal opinion, is that I think this is a good deal for the Star Wars world.
I was worried a little bit at first when it was first announced, but I think I'm coming around to the idea. They, have done pretty well with Marvel and Pixar, so hopefully, and plus, I'm a big sucker for theme parks, so Star Wars theme park sounds pretty exciting, and I know they're headed there.
I would not be doubtful that somewhere down the line you see a Star Wars theme park eventually. So,
well, the rumors are certainly buzzing now, and there's talk of potentially Disneyland reworking Tomorrowland to be Star Wars Land, and
we'll see.
Yep, absolutely. I think Disney's got huge plans for Star Wars, not only theme parks and movies, but television, merchandising. This is a big deal for them, and they're gonna make sure that they do it right, because they've got a lot invested into it now.
Speaking of television, you have now developed a new project with one of the voice actors on the Clone Wars, Her Universe, a line of sci-fi clothing, and I'm sporting a Star Trek shirt today from that. And tell us about that project.
Well, it's, and my apologies, my phone's going to ring here in 1 second. Hopefully that doesn't bother you. It was Ashley Eckstein started the business called Her Universe. She was trying to find clothing for her to wear, Star Wars clothes, and all she could find at the stores were men's clothes, and they were big and bulky, and she couldn't find anything made specifically for women. So she decided to start this business called Her Universe. I came on board after she started it and started working on all of the marketing and PR and such with her on it, and it's been an absolute thrill ride. It's been amazing to see the reaction that fangirls have been giving to the business. You know, almost 50% of all sci-fi fans are women. A lot of people don't realize that, but they have not been catered to like the men have, or the boys, so to speak. So Ashley has really focused just on the geek girl community, and now through heruniverse.com we produce clothing for Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, the Sci-Fi Network for some of their shows like Battlestar Galactica and Warehouse 13. And we've got some new projects coming down the line as well to add to it. So it's a good time to be a female fan of sci-fi.
Well, hey, I've definitely noticed the lack as well, and it's super exciting to be able to now have that line out for all of us other half of the
there you go. And
world. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. We'd love to hear more and keep going and tear your ear off all day, but running out of time, unfortunately. We hope to have you on again in the future.
Yes, when we talk about your upcoming role in episode 7, right?
Yeah.
I hope to be there.
Be great.
Just never know.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, appreciate the time. I enjoyed the talk.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Dan.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's all for this episode of Spacing Out. Be sure to visit our website, openminds.tv, for all the latest news.
And thanks for joining us today. We'll be back next week with yet another show. I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. We will see you in the future.